Well, today we're going to be doing a quick little side quest. I got to do two things to this bike to get it performing optimally. First things first, I have to fix the reed valve gasket leak. The telltale sign is if you put your finger underneath the intake surface, you're going to see a little bit of fuel. So I got to go ahead and tear this apart and put some gasket maker in behind there. I find that's the easiest fix. The second issue at play here is my clutch arm. And this motor is 3.5 years old, the bottom end, so I expect this to happen eventually. You can see the arm is no longer level with the case like there, so the cover. So basically when you pull the clutch in, it's got a little bit of play. So I gotta go ahead and fix that. So we'll do those two things in today's video. I'm gonna be explaining what happened to the saw build. I got to ride it. It felt pretty good, but there is some limiting factors to it, and that's the reason I took it off. So I'm gonna have to share that with you guys in today's video, but let's dive right in. Throughout the video, you're probably going to notice that there's a lot of time lapses. Reason being is because taking off a reed valve is pretty time consuming, and I don't want to make you guys too bored while watching the video. Okay, a little update here. We have the reed valve removed. These are carbon fiber pedals. They've been holding up fine. The reed stuffer inside, once again, thanks for A&B Garage. You know, it's still working perfectly fine. I believe the file is from Ethan Smolik, but like I said, these G2 reed stuffers are a must if you want to have a good tune and stable idle. But anyhow, let's take a look at the inside here. So, I don't know if we're going to be able to see in here, but they're Phillips. And I never understood why this reed kit comes with Phillips, but I don't have any bolts that are that short, so we're just going to have to do with those. But usually what I'll do is, once I put the gasket maker in, I'll tend to go back after the video and just retighten them. So I recommend doing that for you guys at home so that you don't have any near leaks in the future. Obviously, when you put the gasket maker in there, you're adding an extra layer of thickness to the mating surface. So that means you're going to probably have to go back and tighten them. I've gotten away with it. For example, on the Harley, I've put the JB Weld Ultra Black on there. No, it's not the JB Weld itself, but it's just the brand of the sealant. But it's been working fine. I haven't had to go back in, so it really depends. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It depends how level your gasket surfaces are. But basically, I'm going to take the reed valve off. I'm going to use my favorite sealer. I have Moto Seal. This has been working fine. But I also have this stuff here. I really recommend this for you guys at home. I'll link it in the description. This is good for G2 reeds, man, because the problem with the G2 reed, there's so many points of failure. You can't have the sealant not working correctly. Whatever you do, I can't stress this enough. Do not use this on your reed gaskets. This is not gas resistant. I've had it in the past where it's actually gotten soft and went into the engine. It didn't cause any damage because it's just, you know, it's just sealant, but it gets all gummed up. So don't use this on your intake side. Only use it on your exhaust if you choose. Okay, so we got the reed block off itself. So I'm going to go ahead and do now is scrape off all the old gasket material. I'm going to reuse these gaskets because currently I've ran out of Felpro stuff, so don't be so wasteful like me making a new one every time. You can reuse these, so I'm going to carefully peel it off. Probably use some like thinners or something to get all the sealer off, or some brake clean, something of that nature. As far as the intake bolts themselves, where you can't put lock washers on them, or at least I don't recommend it, what we're going to be doing here is I bought some of this stuff, and we're going to try it out, just some blue thread locker, so that way the intake bolts can't vibrate out. Because if you think of it this way, you know, this is the inside of the engine, obviously the reeds are in it, but if one of these bolts are to back out, not only will you have a massive air leak, but those bolts can get sucked into the engine. So from now on, when I put these reed valves on, I'm going to be using some blue Loctite to ensure that the bolts don't come off during operation. So sorry if my voice is a little bit weird because the heater is going. You know, it's definitely a Canadian winter, so it's cold as hell out here. But anyhow, we have our gaskets. So I just went ahead and replaced them. I found some in my spare gasket box. The ones could have been reused, the ones that were on it. There's no problem with them. I could have used some WD-40 or brake clean and probably got most of the Moto Seal off. But this one actually came with my OZ reed, and I thought I would use it. And these ones are off an old G2 that I had, so we'll toss them on. But what I got to do now, I have this little scraper bit. It's kind of cool because I got to clean off the the intake surface here. And basically I'm just going along, and I'll show you guys on camera here, and I'm just scraping away at the gasket material. And some people try to burn it off with a butane torch, or they'll try to use some kind of solvent. The only real way to get the stuff off, at least for me, is to just spend like 5 minutes, you know, scraping away at it. It's boring, and you know, it's kind of tedious, but you can definitely get it done with a little bit of, you know, dedication. But if you don't do this and you put a bunch of sealant on and hope for the best, there's still a good chance that you could have a leak. You really need to make sure that, for one, you're not digging in the aluminum, but for two, you want to make sure that your gasket surfaces are still flat and all that stuff. So I'm just going to keep cleaning her up, and we'll get the reed valve back on, and we'll move on to the clutch assembly stuff, and I'll explain a little bit more about the saw build. That's what you guys are probably here for. But like I said, anybody that has a G2 reed, it's a really good reed valve for making power, in my experience, because I find the OZ reed is perfect for China dolls, but even a Minarelli, like, it'll keep up with that. So you can use G2s on a lot of different setups. It's just what I recommend. You know, deer reeds are a little big for application. These are just the perfect size with the stuffer, so I recommend them for sure. So while we wait for this to dry up here a little bit, I'm going to be using Motive Seal on here. If it's something that you take apart a lot, I really recommend this stuff. It's a lot more flexible than most sealants, and when you take it apart, it won't tear up your gaskets. It's really good stuff. Okay, so the reed valve's all back together. It's looking pretty good. And what we're going to be focusing in on now is my clutch issue. So I've not messed with the flower nut because I can just simply tell by the angle of this arm that the bucking bar has weared in significantly and needs to be replaced. I'm going to be cutting a slightly longer one and sharpening the edge on the clutch cam. You won't find this information anywhere else because everybody just plays it safe and tells you to go buy the recommended part. And I'm here to tell you that this engine right here, you know, it's about 4.5 years old. It doesn't look like, because I take care of these things, but that's not the point. The point is, I've never had to replace the clutch shaft. What I did is I put a longer, I guess you would call it the bucking bar in there, and you know, the arm is still straight. It has a nice range of motion, and I've resharpened the edge. So that just shows you that this mod does work. And it's stupid to buy little stuff like that because, like I stated earlier, you want to buy CNC heads, you want to buy better carbs, you want to get a better exhaust. You don't want to buy, you know, stupid little stuff like clutch assembly stuff. That's boring. But that's what I'm going to be showing you guys as a little hack, so hopefully it helps y'all. And would you look at that? Right back where it should be. I didn't have to buy anything. I just cut out a longer bolt. I wish I could have showed you guys, but I was using the angle grinder and the camera wasn't really focusing. So, you know, it is what it is. The sparks are flying, but that's all I had to do. So basically get yourself an old engine stud, which is M8 by 125, and basically cut it. This is probably a 1/2 mil longer, and look, now it goes where it should. So we fix that. I'm gonna get the whole clutch assembly back together, and we'll close out the video. Okay, so while adjusting this clutch here, I just wanted to take this portion of the video to talk about the chainsaw engine that the little concept that I tried out, and I'll throw in some clips of it running. And it did run pretty good. And basically, I had issues with the cylinder bolts again. If I was to do the project all over again, I would probably use, shout out to Mikes and Bikes once again. He recommended that I use studs. And the problem with the TS400 is it doesn't really give you enough room to use studs. So I totally wanted to use studs like he recommended, but the TS400 cylinder didn't allow that due to the cooling fins. So I had no choice but to use M5 bolts, which once again, I probably should have used M6, but where I was using 80cc case, I didn't really have that much material left. So, you know, if I was to do it all over again, you know, the TS400, for one, I probably wouldn't even go with that cylinder. You know, it had pretty good torque. I was riding it around and had good takeoff speed. But if I was to do it all over again, and for you guys watching, this is probably valuable information, use the MS440 10mm pin top end on Amazon. It's about $45 Canadian. And you can use, you're going to need to fill the transfers with JB Weld. You won't need to use any spacers. Use a 38mm stroke, which I do have one over there, which is the thicker crank weights also. Use that crank setup balanced. I would use either Healy coils in the inside there to give the bolt something steel to screw into, or like Mike's and Bikes said, I would use some kind of stud, because as we know, the standard China dolls use studs, except they're a lot longer. So I think saw builds for me definitely have potential, but I don't want to be like everybody else. You know, everybody built a vertical Minarelli, whereas my horizontal is very unique because it's case reed. I made it at home. It's still running great to this day. But, you know, Minarellis have all the advantages, and I love them. But I like the saw because during break-in, this thing was able to go up hills like crazy. Like when I was riding it around, the TS400, and the TS400 is the dog compared to some of them. Some of them are a lot more powerful. I noticed it climbed hills like really good. So I think once I get things figured out the third time, like I said, I'm soon going to be getting paid from YouTube. So it's going to go straight into the channel for you guys, and we'll dive deep into the MS440 build this winter. And I think it'll be some cool content, because like I said, everybody builds a Minarelli and gets good power, but I think a saw engine is definitely pretty dang cool, because you're taking something from a chainsaw that was never intended to be on one of these and making it work. The main thing with the M5 bolts, the reason the Husqvarnas and Steels can use them on the factory application is because their metal that they use for the aluminum casting is a much higher quality, so it doesn't strip out as easily as mine did. With these $30 cases, they have air bubbles in the casting. You can't expect much. So it was, and where I was taking it apart 5-6 times, you know, checking squish, putting spacers in, it was bound to happen. When I had it together the first or second time, they were just as solid as far as the threads go as an M8, believe it or not. Like, I could tighten the crap out of them and they wouldn't even budge. So, you know, if there's anything I learned from that, when you do build a saw, try not to take the top end off a lot, because you're only going to weaken the aluminum that it's being screwed into. Like I said, I have clips of it running. I rode it around. It was a great little engine, and it was on this exact frame. So if I do a saw engine, the good plus is I do have a, I'll go grab it in a sec for you guys. It's a exhaust that I welded up. It's a stock muffler, but it'll bolt right up to the MS440. So this is the pipe that I made for the chainsaw. Basically, it's a stock pipe, but what I've done is, let me get this crap off. What I've done is made the header straight so that when you put it on the engine itself, it fits the contour of the frame and comes down like that. Whereas the stock China doll has an angle, as most of you know, so you have to re-weld that and stuff. So if I do a future saw build, then the good thing about MS440, it's a piston port design. All I have to buy is the top end itself. I have JB Weld at home. And what else? I'll have to buy an OKO carb, you know, because they do take that larger carburetor. And we'll go about it from there. But, you know, at least I have the pipe from it. So I did get something from it at least. Well, I think that's going to do it for today's video. Hope you guys learned something as always. Make sure to give me a like, subscribe if you're new to the channel. We're going to come back with that saw build this year, and I think it's going to be really good content for y'all, because the MS440 is not publicized as it probably should be, because in fact it's probably the easiest swap. I mean, you get yourself a pair of YD100 cases. It's already got the circle that you need for the size of cylinders. No need to get a Dremel out to do any kind of boring. It will go a lot smoother, I think, than the TS400 as far as, you know, building it. And now that I know what I know now, talking to many people in the saw community, learning things, I think I'm going to take all my knowledge and apply it to one engine and make it, you know, as refined as possible. But that will definitely come in the near future. Like I said, for now, we're just going to be running this on the Hyper. It's a great little, you know, engine. It's been working pretty good. I have the little flex exhaust on there. It is not ideal. But the thing is, when I had the TS400 on here and it was working good and I was riding around, I said, you know what? I'll make the Indian have a little bit more power. So I put the MZ clone on that. So for now, this will have to do. I basically just did an exhaust swap without even realizing it, but that's besides the point. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video.